knows which lawyer you should choose. Other lawyers know. They've invited Gary C. Johnson to teach his method of judo law in Denver, Atlanta, New Orleans, and across the nation. Gary used judo law to set the record for the largest personal injury verdict in the history of Kentucky. Now, which lawyer should you choose? The choice is clear. Gary C. Johnson. Dial pound hurt. This is an advertisement.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson drives for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt, my dear friend Gary C. Johnson.
Isn't it wonderful to be here, folks? Isn't it wonderful to be alive? Hot dog. We made it another week. Hoo-wee, my friends. How you guys doing, gals? Hopefully you didn't get in any fights last week. Hopefully you didn't assume anything. Hopefully you didn't take anything personal. Hopefully you were impeccable with the word, which is pretty doggone hard. And hopefully you did only the best you could do without worrying about what anyone else was doing, right? You all did all of that. Tonight we're not going to talk much about the law. Probably not going to talk anything about the law. What do you think? Is that okay with you guys and gals? But I do want to talk to you about something that occurred to me over the weekend and watching the advertising on TV from, well, primarily lawyers, which is what you see a lot of. And it dawned on me back in Eastern Kentucky, when we were raised, there was two things that our parents taught us from day one. One is, don't pick up a copperhead snake. Stay away from those things. I mean, those things are dangerous, and that is instilled into you from the time you're a toddler, because we have copperheads in Eastern Kentucky. And the other one is, don't talk to strangers and don't trust them, period. Now, I wonder why they taught us to not talk to or trust strangers. In other words, it was okay for us to talk to our neighbors. It was okay for us to go into the neighbors' homes. It was okay for us to go to the local people that we knew. But we were taught, don't trust strangers. And it dawned on me, in Eastern Kentucky years ago, a couple of hundred years, maybe not that long, strangers came through. And most people in the mountains, in those rural hollows, couldn't even read and write. And those strangers gave them a few dollars and had them sign a piece of paper. And that paper was called a broad form deed, which literally took the riches away from them for basically nothing. So they had nothing to leave to their children or their grandchildren, because they had signed it away because they couldn't read and write. Basically, all the rights to their property that they were going to be continuing to be the ones paying the taxes on, but it was now owned by these strangers. Now that happened in Eastern Kentucky, period. Now, why am I saying that in regard to strangers? When you look at the media and you look at the advertising, and I'm going to just say it straight up, you see this out-of-state firm that says, we are the biggest law firm in the nation. We are strangers, and we're coming to you to tell you that we are going to take care of you when your local people, your local lawyers that are very fine lawyers, won't take care of you, but we will. Now that's what you're hearing on the TV. And it's slick. Have you ever seen anything as slick as their ads? Woo, man, they're slick. Man, imagine how much money they spend on those ads just to try to convince you that they know what they're doing when the local lawyers that are there that you know in your community don't. They slander the local lawyers. I've seen them get on there and say, your local lawyer won't take, he needs some money more than you do, and he's going to take whatever the insurance company offers. And that's a barefaced lie. Now, they may be a group that will take what they offer, but it's not your local lawyers, because they're part of your community, and they would have to see you and they'd have to look you in the face. They're not going to do that to you. But it will be done to you by a stranger that doesn't care. One other reason I want to talk about this. You talk about the balance of trade all the time and how it is important for a country that you sell more products out of your area than you bring in, because the money, once it comes in, it circulates and the entire community gets the benefit of it. Think about the money, the attorney fees that is paid to these strangers from Florida. Where do you think that money goes? Do you think there's any chance it's going to go back into your local community for everybody to get the benefit of? Your local lawyers. You're very competent, in my opinion, local lawyers that are being done exactly the way Walmart did your local businesses years ago. Now think about that. And they're being done wrong. You got good lawyers. You got good local lawyers that aren't strangers. And that money that they get for their fees will stay in the community. It'll go to our local churches. It'll go to our local businesses. And it'll stay here, and it won't end up in Florida.
Gary, what you're saying is the old saying comes true. When it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So in the day when they came and the people signed over their mineral rights, it was presented to them, we're going to give you this check and you get to keep your land and you get to live on it. Mm-hmm. Not realizing that the individual had lost millions of dollars in coal, gas, timber. They signed all of that over. And you're saying today it's the same deal, it's just being presented in a different way.
The rule of not trusting strangers or dealing with strangers is still true. Mm-hmm. So my friends, I'm passing that on to you for whatever it's worth. And I'm not saying run out and hire Gary Johnson. I'm saying hire local lawyers, people in your community, people that need the business, people that will be here for you. That's who I'm saying hire.
But you are saying if you want to hire Gary Johnson, you can come into your office in Lexington, Pikeville, Hazard, or Hazard. You can see you can see the staff, you can talk, you can research, you can look at the numbers.
Well, we don't have a single client in my offices that I don't personally at some point deal with, period, because that's just the way it is. But anyhow, just had that thought this weekend, thought I'd pass it on to you. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Gary has told me tonight we're going to make television history on Simply the Law, so you do not want to leave. Stay with us. We'll be right back after you see this.
People are asking, what is judo law? Judo is a martial art that uses the opponent's strength to defeat them by not opposing it directly. Gary C. Johnson created a method of practicing law based upon that principle. It worked so well, he named it judo law. To see the results, go to GaryCJohnson.com. To have Gary and his team of judo lawyers go to work for you, dial pound HURT. This is an advertisement.
Welcome back in to Simply the Law. Gary and I were laughing during the break. He has, over the years, convinced me that the greatest show on earth is people all around you. And I do a lot more watching and listening now, and I love it because it is fascinating.
Isn't it, though? And my friends, you are too, aren't you? One more thing before I get into what I'm going to talk about tonight, which may be, we'll see.
You don't want to scare them off.
Yeah. Just remember, you're special. You're one of a kind. Don't ever forget that. And the program tonight is about that, how special and one of a kind you are. Okay? Now let's go to the computer, talk to you. There's our number in case any of you need to reach us. We're in Lexington, right off of Winchester Road. GaryCJohnson.com. Please make sure you have underinsurance, protects you and your family. Now, Dr. Seuss. How many of you remember Dr. Seuss and his stories? He was born March 2nd, 1904. He died September 24th, 1991. He wrote children's stories. Dr. Seuss. Tonight I want to talk to you and read to you his book called The Sneetches, which was published in 1961, because it is so applicable to what is going on today in our societies. Now, what do I mean by that? How many times have I said on this program that no one is better than anyone else? And if you have some organization that's exclusive, that means it's had to exclude somebody, right? Exclude them. Why is that human nature? Now, Dr. Seuss knew that in '61, that it's human nature, but he decided to call it the Sneetches. And it's a moral lesson for the children that's being read the story. And I want to read the story to you because it's funny, it's cute, and it says it all, okay? So, friends, the Sneetches, the book, the Sneetches, Dr. Seuss. Don't hang up on this yet, and don't click, because you will find this interesting. Keith and I were fascinated with it.
I will tell our friends this. We did this on the radio the other day, and I had a gentleman come to me at a service the other night and said, Here I am listening to the radio, and the smartest man in Kentucky is getting ready to read to me from Dr. Seuss, The Sneetches, and I thought, what in the world? But he turned up the radio, he listened to the whole story, and he said, what a lesson. I had never thought about it. So stay with us and listen to The Sneetches. You'll love it. Okay, folks, here we go. And since this was probably going to be played tonight, it's sort of a bedtime story for you, okay? Sneetches, page 1. Now, the star-belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big, they were really so small, you might think of such a thing wouldn't matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star-belly Sneetches would brag. We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beach. With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. We'll have nothing to do with the plain-belly sort. And whenever they met some, when they were out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. When the star-belly children went out to play, could a plain belly get in the game? No, not at all. You could only play if your bellies had stars and the plain belly children had none upon theirs. When the star-belly Sneetches had Frankfurter roast or picnics or parties or marshmallow toast, they never invited the plain-belly Sneetches. They left them out in the cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them year after year. Then one day it seems, while the plain-belly Sneetches were moping and doping along on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up with the strangest of cars. My friends, he announced in a voice clear and keen, my name is Sylvester Monkey McBean. And I've heard of your troubles, I've heard you're unhappy, but I can fix it, I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you, I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work at great speed. And my work is 100% guaranteed. Okay? Then quickly Sylvester Monkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine. And he said, you want stars like a star-belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard. And they clambered inside, then the machine roared. And it clunked and it bonked and it jerked and it burked and it bopped
hopped them about, but the thing really worked. When the plain Billy Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. So now, folks, what do you think's going to happen? Everybody has stars, and you have no Sneetches better than other Sneetches.
Everybody
right?
is equal.
Everybody's now equal, okay? And here's the happy new starred Billy Sneetches, okay? Then they yelled at the ones who had stars at the start, "We're exactly like you can't tell us apart. We're all just the same now, you snooty old smarties, and now we can go to your Frankfurter parties." "Good grief," groaned the ones who had the stars at the first, "we're still the best Sneetches and they are the worst. But how in the world will we know," they all frowned, "in which kind of what and what is all the way around?" Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, "Things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who, that's perfectly true, but come with me, my friends, do what you know. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best Sneetches on beaches, and it will cost you all $10 eaches."
I like McBean.
"Billy, stars are no longer in style," said McBean. "What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars so you won't look like Sneetches who have them on theirs. And that handy machine, working very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely." See this big fancy machine? Then with snoots in the air, they paraded about, they opened their beaks and they let out a shout. "We know who is who, now there isn't a doubt, the best kind of Sneetches are Sneetches without." Then, of course, those with stars got all frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMoney McBean invited them into his star-off machine. For money, of course. Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guessed, things got into a real horrible mess. All the rest of that day and on those wild, screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches. Off again, on again, in again, out again, star on, star off. Though the machines they raced, round and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money, they kept running through, until neither the plane nor the star bitch Billy Sneetches knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was one, or whatever who was, or who was. You can see them going through the machine, paying their money to old McBean. Then when every last cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car up the beach. They never will learn, no, you can't teach a Sneetch. And see, he has all their money going off. This is a children's story. So, but McBean was quite wrong. I'm happy to say that the Sneetches got really smart that day. The day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day all the Sneetches forgot about stars and whether they had one or not upon theirs. Moral of that story? All Sneetches are equal. And you can't put a star on one and make it better than another one.
Gary, let's take a break and come back and talk about how this relates to all of us as being human beings.
Let's do it.
Stay with us. We'll be back to discuss what kind of Sneetch we are and when we found out. This is Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson.
Eastern Kentucky, southern West Virginia, and southwest Virginia. It can be a tough territory to reach when it comes to marketing. We can help. We can also help you find your identification. And we have plenty of services to do it and a lot of experience behind us, over 37 years. In fact, we've either booked or sold nearly $70 million in advertising in this region. You need a new voice, a new idea, a new concept? Casebolt Marketing. We're ready to go to work for you today. Our motto is nothing happens until you make it happen. So let's get started today.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. When you read this story to me on the radio, 1,000 things went through my mind. From the time of being a kid, when 2 or 3 kids would get together and play and say, oh, you can't play with us, or you're not part of our crowd. And then I thought back to the days of growing up, you know, when your jeans would get thin and the knees would come out. Back then the fad was to have pretty blue jeans, you know, real blue. And if you had holes in the knees of yours, then you didn't fit in. And today, that's the fad. People pay all kinds of money for it. But when I listen to this, it comes down to we are just human beings, just like the Sneetches. We're just people, all of us.
Well, I think what he was trying to do, and this is back in '61, and hopefully if you have children, if you're watching this program and they're young children and you read them this story, you will talk to them, because it's a very funny, interesting story about, when they're talking about Sneetches, they're talking about people, and that all people are equal, and there's none that should be put in a higher position than others, because we are all just Sneetches, whether we have a star or we don't have a star. And that's the moral of this. And in this day and time in our society, I thought it appropriate to read this story to you, to bring it back to you how really and truly each person is equally important. Let's go to the computer for just 1 second. Now, I always try to throw in a couple of quotes, okay? Because I love quotes from smart people. Ben Franklin: politicians like diapers need to be changed often for the same reason.
Oh, oh, that one hurt.
Huh?
That one hurt. That was good.
Mark Twain: the two most important days in your life is the day you are born and the day you found out why you were born.
You know, that's really good. And one thing about what you've read about the Sneetches, you have, for 20 plus years that I've been with you, tried to tell our listeners and our viewers, you are one of a kind. Why would you want to imitate someone else or try to be like someone else? Or why on God's earth would you let anybody put you down?
And the reason I put that Mark Twain one up there is so you would understand he understood this, Mark Twain did, and he understood that each of you have something special about you. Important day you're born, extremely important today when you figure out what your talent is and why you were born. Now, if you haven't figured it out, I was talking to a fellow yesterday who was very personable, person people wanted to be around and talk to and stuff. And he said, I've always looked for my talent and I couldn't find it. And I heard you talking about it, Gary, and I realized this is my talent. That my talent is that I can talk to people, I can communicate with them, and I enjoy them and they enjoy me. That is my talent.
You know,
Now that's how simple a talent can be, but there's something.
yeah, that's the greatest thing, because when you're telling them to find their talent, they're thinking, oh, do I have to be a painter, an artist, a musician? You're saying no. Your talent could be simply to be the best mother in the world. Your talent could be that you're the best friend in the world. Your talent could be that you uplift people, you make them feel better.
Your talent could be that you have that sixth sense or whatever it is that know how to make food taste good when you cook it.
Yeah.
I'm serious. There's just all kinds of talents, and everybody has one, and it's amazing. Let's see if I have another quote. I can't remember if I put more than one quote on there or not. Let's go back to computer. George Washington: it's better to offer no excuse than a bad one. It is better to be alone than in bad company. Isn't that true?
Boy, that is the truth. Yes.
George Washington: if freedom of speech is what he's saying, is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Roy Rogers, always my favorite one. Today they're making pictures that I wouldn't want Trigger to see. Now, Trigger was his horse. And this is an old quote. He was talking about the movies. Let's do that. I got another quote from my buddy Thomas Jefferson. Pride cost us more than hunger, thirst, and cold. Think about that, folks. We never repent on having eaten too little.
Isn't that the truth?
When angry, count to 10. Before you speak, if you're very angry, 100.
And if you're extremely angry, do the 24-hour rule.
That's right. How much pain has cost us the evils which have never happened? And that's what he's talking about, the worries that we have that never happen.
I liked the first one that you did because it made me think of the other day, the bad excuse to no excuse. Mm-hmm. I'd made a mistake and you said, what did you do that for? And I said, I just wasn't thinking. There was no excuse. There was nothing I could say other than the fact I just didn't think about it. And you said, well, at least you were honest.
It is so hard to make that old brain take time to think, isn't it, folks? How many of you have made the mistake of not thinking something through and then acted?
But, you know, I think, Gary, that because of the new technology, we want to do that. We want to text real quick. We want to send an email. We want to place a call. We want to give an answer immediately instead of saying, let me think about it.
The one thing that I want you to take from this program, even though you may laugh about this personal injury lawyer in here reading children's stories, right? There's a moral in this story on the Sneetches. It is one we all need to take to heart, especially in this day and time. That it doesn't make any difference whether that Sneetch has a star, whether it's black, white, whatever. It doesn't matter. Sneetches are equal. Period. And should be treated with the same exact respect. And you should, just like you have to understand how special you are, you need to respect how special everyone else around you is. And when you do that, we won't have any problems in this world. They'll go just boom, like that. Problems will go away.
What a great comment. When you finally realize how unique and special you are, then you have to realize that's how unique and special the person is across from the table. A great point.
And don't go around bragging that you got a star, okay?
Well, what about it? I told you it was going to be television history on Simply the Law, the Sneetches from Dr. Seuss. On behalf of Gary Johnson, thank you so much for tuning into this program. Gary and I always look forward to it every week, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this very same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
Who really knows which lawyer you should choose? Other lawyers know. They've invited Gary C. Johnson to teach his method of judo law in Denver, Atlanta, New Orleans, and across the nation. Gary used judo law to set the record for the largest personal injury verdict in the history of Kentucky. Now, which lawyer should you choose? The choice is clear. Gary C. Johnson. Dial #HURT. This is an advertisement.